Morning. Falco, the team that won the most recent sea battle, was that team invited to the qualifier, or is it whoever wins the next sea battle? The one on April. The next one, okay. All right. Good morning. How's everyone doing today? You're fresh off of MAGFest? Well, you're in luck. Now you get to hear somebody who wasn't there talk about it. With somebody who was. You got to meet Rose? If you never met Rose before? I guess Rose doesn't go to Riptide. Sea Battle mentioned? Yes. That was the one mention. We're going to talk about Sea Battle. Check. Mark that tournament off. Don't have to talk about it. I'm looking at the new Inkling photo from November. Was Brush not there? I don't think I see Avril. Oh, I know I see Avril. I know I see Brush. I didn't realize his hair's gotten that long. until I saw them. Oh, hello. The ultimate Absol, your coworker's a moron. You're trying not to die, Glitch Cactus. You're succeeding. Is this an LSL cap? It is. I was one of the first people to get one of these things. I would wear it every episode that I would talk about LSL, except for the last episode I talked about it. I forgot to wear it, so I figured I'd make up for it and wear it here. In a backwards hat fashion. Ink 95 was at MAGFest? Okay, now I know. Now I know it was a party. Now I know it was a party. Okay. I think we're ready for today. I think we're ready. We got a lot of stuff. Actually, no. Okay. I accidentally, so I've talked about how I got a newer iPhone than what I've had in the past. To screenshot things, you have to hit the power button and like the volume button, as opposed to this button and like the home button that doesn't exist anymore. I screenshot my phone on accident so many times, it's not even funny. Because I'll just be kind of like watching my anime right here as I'm falling asleep, and I have my fingers naturally on both buttons, and I'll just like screenshot and like, I'm never gonna. Mid 30-year-old problem, I know. It's life. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, while you are jumping over the line of scrimmage to stop the tush push. Groaning as the Chiefs return to the Super Bowl for a third year in a row. Getting tickets to whatever this Splatoon party boat in Toronto is going to be, whatever it is that you're doing right now. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. We have a lot to cover today. There's a lot of times where I'll wake up on Sunday and I'm just like, bruh, I got nothing to talk about. Let me just maybe reach out to a few people, see if there's something they're interested in. And then I was like, oh, I saw some pictures of MAGFest Splatoon, and someone reached out to me. It was like, hey, you should try to get Rose on because I want to hear like what all happened at this event. So I was like, okay. And then I was like, all right, well, what else am I going to talk about? And then I was like, oh, wait, we should combine that into a talking about all the lands that are going on, the locals and the Splat tourney qualifiers and the majors and all that good stuff. So it's just kind of went down the rabbit hole of looking at all this stuff. And I was like, all right, this is going to be, we're going to have to cram this into an hour somehow. So we're going to make sure we do that. And the notes that I wrote down on my notebook, I've already kind of got rid of that page, so I lost everything I was even writing down. News of tournaments may be of interest to the casual listener of the Popcast. While I search for the notes that I lost. There's a gazillion tournaments going on. Did you know last weekend there were 20 tournaments? 13 on Saturday, 7 on Sunday. Combined for 20. We have not hit that 50 tournaments a week goal yet that I predicted was going to happen at some point in this year. But by golly, we're getting close. We're knocking on that door. It is going to happen. 20 in 2 days. It's baby numbers. We can get there. I would shout out this. Fountain of Dreams is going to be taking place on Thursday. If you're a team who's looking to get banned from Low Inc, or you're a team that is recently banned from Low Inc, and you're like, oh, what am I going to do while you wait for the next SAC season to come around? Fountain of Dreams is a pretty solid tournament. If you want to get banned from Low Inc, play in that tournament and do good. You're going to be going up against teams that are above the level of skill, above the Low Inc skill level, which is a good way to show that you're too good for Low Inc. Yes, you can face that in open tournaments as well, but as many people have pointed out, you're just kind of cannon fodder for a quick 0-2 in a double elimination bracket. It is what it is, but I would shout out Fountain of Dreams if that's a tournament that you're interested in. The best tournament for teams that are banned from Low Inc and looking to get banned from Low Inc. That is currently a thing right now, in my opinion. Today, we're going to be chatting with Rose of Battle about MAGFest and specifically the Splatoon side of things, although we will get a boots on the ground kind of approach of everything that happened at MAGFest, what it is, and I don't know. I'm going to be asking more genuine questions about MAGFest in general, so maybe this will be more interesting to me than you guys, but that's what the Popcast has always been about. It's been about what I find interesting, and you idiots are just along for the ride, so buckle up. We're going to go for it. All that and more. But first, baby, it's cold outside. It is. We're getting snow in Florida. The snow that came down 3 weeks ago is finally starting to melt here in Indianapolis. The world as a whole just flat out sucks right now. And you are here, though. The reason you are here is because you believe in this community. Whether you want to believe in it or not, or admit it or not, you are here because you believe in the soul of competitive Splatoon. And as much as you guys like to bitch and moan about the competitive Splatoon scene, which I do quite often on this podcast, deep down, we all really love it. There's something about the community, the in-person community, that makes you get out of bed every day and say, you know what? I'll take a Zuka in the face today. I can deal with that. I can throw some soda dispensers out today. Lands provide that community that you've been looking for, meeting your fellow squids, and also playing the game in the way that it was actually designed to be played. If you have never played Splatoon in LAN mode, you've never actually played Splatoon. It's a completely different video game, and it's like, oh my gosh, I wish it was like this all the time. Well, you only get it a few times a year if you go to a LAN. It's one of the main perks of going to a LAN, other than meeting a whole lot of cool people. We spent a lot of time on the abundance of online tournaments. I talked about 20 that took place this last weekend. And all of those tournaments, the vast majority of those tournaments that take place online on Sindao.inc, the bracket and badge tournaments, in the grand scheme of things, those tournaments mean nothing. Mean absolutely nothing. If you win it, nobody cares. If you do well in it, cool, pat on the back. Most people genuinely don't care. But the LAN stuff, that is where it's all at. That is where all the positivity comes from. So let's take a moment to look at the NA LAN calendar as it stands today, starting with this graphic that was posted yesterday on the Splatoon Tourney Blue Sky post channels thing, whatever. Screen share. Here are all the events that are announced to be the qualifiers for the first Splatoon LAN Championship Showdown. This is going to be taking place at the end of April. There was a Seattle Sea Battle that took place earlier this year, or earlier this month, actually. That's not on here. That's not count. The one that takes place in April is the actual kind of thing. Now, when we use the term local, what do we mean by local? Aren't all events local? Like if I go to Riptide, isn't that local to northern Ohio? Yeah. The term local is just the term that's kind of used to describe something that's not a major. Well, how do you describe a major? A major is anything to where a TO has to spend 20 hours the day before building the venue for the competitive Splatoon esport to take place, and the first 2 rounds have to be delayed because however they built it, they didn't build it correctly. Those are the requirements for an event to be considered a major versus being a local. But is this all of the events that are going on? No, there are much more locals, more things that are starting up that just haven't met whatever kind of criteria that is. Like, I guess you have to be big enough or run a certain amount of times before you can be considered a qualifier for the Splatoon LAN Championship Showdown. So yes, Squid Cities, I see you. I recognize you. I wish you guys luck. You're not up to the level of some of these other events just yet. That doesn't mean you won't be in the future. I want to talk about these events right here, though, as we get into this one. First off, Gator LAN. Taking place in Florida, if Florida were to find ways to survive with the whole whopping 2 inches of snow that they got. I have been aware of Gatorland for a long time because it is not just a Splatoon event. Most of these other events that you see listed here are just Splatoon exclusive, which is another kind of cool thing about local events, is that when you go to a major like a Riptide or a LTC, it's Splatoon is kind of just like the side event. It's just more so us leeching off of our big brother Smash Brothers. Most of these events are just standalone Splatoon taking place in an actual esport venue that isn't built into a convention hall overnight, which is a cool, unique kind of feature about these things. Gatorland is like 10 to 15 different games going on. It's not just Splatoon. And obviously Gainesville, Florida, that's where Gatorland comes from. I have no idea what to expect out of Gatorland. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that it is part of the Splatoon Tourney showdown thing. We'll see how many teams sign up for that one. Is the one coming up in about a couple of weeks now. But it's still cool. I've never genuinely seen Gatorland in action, although it's taken place a long time. It's actually going to be on Splatoon Tourney's stream, which got a pretty decent viewing for the last Sea Battle that took place on that channel. Chai Shoals is the Chicago event. Yes, it does take place in a library. At least last I heard it does. Chai Shoals has been kind of like an event that started off as a meetup. Just people kind of getting together. Well, let's just bust out our Switches, make them kiss with each other, and then just play the game for fun. I think it's kind of morphed into becoming a tournament over time. And that is the event where I'm most curious to see if more people will play in it because it becomes a qualifier now versus just, okay, who's in the Chicago area wants to meet up. This seems to be taking a next step up into serious tournament kind of business. And it is, I believe it does hold the record for most times it's been held. I believe this is the 11th time that Chai Shoals is, well, actually it says right there, number 32. So I don't know where the 10 came from that I saw earlier, but yeah, this event's been going on for quite a long time. A lot of these other events have been sparking up in the last couple of years or so, or even the last year. There's been a big boom of local events, especially on the West Coast, thank goodness, because they lost Genesis, and the West Coast gets basically nothing. And if you want to have something on the West Coast, you got to make it yourself. So California, Arizona, Oregon, or Washington, they all stepped up. Maybe Oregon will one day. Portland land win. Booyah Bay. Booyah Bay is a really cool event. The last time that Booyah Bay ran, it had a grand total of 15 teams that played back in October, and they, oh, did I just lose this picture that I was fine? No, I got the picture right here. They took this cool little picture of everybody that went to their event, and there's so many people fitting into it that my webcam here is blocking out somebody dressed up as Orange Winnie the Pooh. I don't know what's going on there, but there's a lot of folks here. If you're wondering what 15 teams looks like, it looks like that. That's a lot of people for an event. Now, you think 15 teams on like an online event, it's like, oh, that's not a huge number. For an event, it's not. But when you realize, oh, 4 people per team, and then you put it all together, and then you throw in spectators, you get a big glob of people. So if that looks like a, if you think like, oh, 10, 20 teams is not a whole lot, that's what 15 looks like. That's pretty massive. Booyah Bay is looking to kind of grow from there. They had 15 teams last time that they played in October. So what is the other events going on here? The H-Town Splashdown. From what I can tell, the H-Town Splashdown of the events that are listed there, maybe other than Big Dapple, is the biggest events we've had so far. 20 teams played in the last H-Town Splashdown, which took place back in November. The next one's going to be taking place in March, which will be the 4th edition of that Houston land. Texas has been a strong bet of competitive Splatoon for a long time. Texas legit has a team that could be considered like there's enough. You could get 4 players from Texas that is like FT Win, Starburst, skill level, caliber. Hence, when we had that Proving Grounds region rumble, Texas just kind of put every other state, including California, into a headlock and gave them a noogie for about 3 hours. It was pretty brutal. But it makes sense that there is a local in Texas, especially with LTC not being a thing anymore. We'll get to that a little bit later. Sunset Surge is making a resurgence in March. That is the Arizona land. The last time, the first time that Sunset Surge ran had 7 teams. The one that took place in July grew to 13, so almost doubled. And again, you saw what 15 teams looked like. That's a lot of people taking place in an event. The Big Dapple, well, let's skip Big Dapple. We'll come back to that one. The new Inkling, the Boston, Massachusetts land. I got another picture for you guys here because this is a land that is run by Avril and our good friend Brushstrokes. Old Brushy Poo, who is one of the head TOs for Low Ink. I believe that is Brush right there. I have not seen Brush with that kind of hair. The last time I saw Brush in person was LTC, where it was much more under control, but Brush is getting a salad right now, unless that is not. That is definitely Brush. Brush has gained a salad at this point. This is New Inkland, who I believe that is what 10 teams look like, but then you see the venue that they have set up there, the 2 different kind of projector screens it looks like up top there, actual kind of setup, like everything you would expect to see at a major event, just on a smaller scale, and it's really cool to see stuff like that. The next New Inkland is going to be taking place in April. And the same exact day is going to be another Sea Battle. We talked about how Sea Battle had, 12, 14 teams? I believe it was 14 teams play in the last one. I'm curious to see, again, what that Splatoon tourney buff, now that it becomes a qualifier, how many more people are going to be like, okay, I want to get to Seattle to play in it. And it's awesome that it's taking place at the same time as an event that's going on the exact opposite side of the country than them. Last and certainly not least is the Big Dapple event. Now, how do you qualify a major based off of size? Big Dapple is a massive tournament. It makes sense. If you're going to be in New York City, you should be able to draw in a good chunk of people, and they do that. An excellent job of doing that. This is going to be the 7th edition of the Big Dapple, taking place on April the 5th. And yeah, they usually fill up that place. I feel like they've hit capacity for what they can do, which is another kind of thing that would make your events, in my mind, qualify as a local, is you have a cap on top of it. There's a finite number of people that you can have into the facility. It's not like they can just throw up more stations or make the fire marshal look the other way. No, like there's a set number for some of these things. And it's good to see a lot of these events kind of get close to whatever that number is. Now, when people are talking about tournament oversaturation, they're not talking about any of these events. Like, there could not be enough local Splatoon events. They don't compete with each other. You're not stealing people from each other. Yeah, Boston and Seattle are running 2 tournaments on the same exact day. They're not competing with each other. They're not stealing anything for the, oh, you're running your skill cap tournament at the same time and you're taking my teams that would have played in my event. No, you can't do that when it's on the complete opposite sides of the country that you're going there. Maybe there's still like viewerships from each other, but they're both on a Splatoon tourney channel, so it's just like competing against yourself, I guess, in that sense. So there's no such thing as too many local events. The more there are, the better, because you get that land feel at more of a hometown kind of style. And it's good to see stuff like that. My hope is that these things do continue to grow. And again, a lot of these events that I kind of pointed out right here have been popping up in just the last year or last couple of years. The H-Town Splashdown, 20 teams in the 3rd time they ran the event. How much bigger can something like that get? Chai Shoal's been running for 32 times, but Booyah Bay is very new. Sunset Surge is very new. And some events go away. The Southern Cal land, that seemed to be popular for a little bit, but I don't know what happened with that. It's not like these things always fall around. I believe the Sea Battle had to get to a different venue, and I don't really know if they because they outgrew it or they lost the place or whatever. I know it's hard to have these esport arenas that a lot of these events take place at. Sometimes those places close down rather quickly and out of nowhere, and it's you kind of go there and you realize, oh wait, sometimes Splatoon's the only thing going on there at the time that you're there. It's a little sad. But it's still cool that we are trending in a direction to where new of these events are going on. And like I said, there's more events than what I just listed that are growing on, that are in their infancy stages and are starting to kind of grow and maybe become something to where they are big enough. I kind of predicted there would be 12 different events that would take place that would be a qualifier for the next Splatoon tourney event. We'll see how that goes over the course of the year. What we need to stop kind of thinking about these events is from a mindset of, well, I don't live next to one of these local events, so I'm just not going to go to it. Now, I'm not sitting here saying you guys need to dump tons of money to go to any of these things. I understand that that's what it takes to get to some of these places. There's no doubt about that. However, in the position that my family is in, I'm trying to think about as PJ gets older and a lot of these events are taking place in big kind of vacation cities, it would be pretty cool to be able to just, we'll just go to Seattle for the weekend, use that as our weekend vacation, get to see the place. We've never been to the Northwest before, and just make Sea Battle a part of the vacation. I could see people doing the same thing with Houston, San Jose, Chicago, Brooklyn, Boston. These are all cities that you would want to go to kind of there's more to do than just the LAN that is taking place at some of these events because of just how big of a place that they are. It seems more just like a an excuse to go vacation to some of these places. Now, there's been floating around the idea, wouldn't it be cool if somebody went to every single event and just like compared them all together? Nobody can do that. Nobody has the money to be going to all of these events. If they do, there's somebody that's in a tax bracket that our president is trying to give a tax cut for. And no, like nobody needs to be going to all of these other events. But I could definitely see, like my personal goal, I would love to go to Big Dapple. Just once, just to go out there, just to see it. I would love to, at a different point in time, go to Seattle and see what that one's all about in person. Like, maybe not playing it, but just be able to hang out with a bunch of people in a bunch of different areas. I think you'll see more of that kind of a trend start to pick up. Especially if we're not getting the same kind of majors that we were getting last year. So let's flip this conversation to talking about the major Splatoon events that are taking place this year that have already been announced. There's no Genesis. Genesis is taking place on Valentine's Day. Losers. Over the Valentine's weekend, I should say. Splatoon is not going to be there. The reason it was there last year, as I've had Splatoon TOs for that event come onto this very show, and what they told me was the reason it was there is because they basically sold it to them. Like the Splatoon TOs went to the Genesis head TOs and was like, here's why you need Splatoon back at your event, and here's what we can do, and here's all the value it can bring. And they gave it a shot, and from what I can tell, they didn't like the numbers that it got, and they're not going to give it another shot. So sorry, West Coast, you had a chance to get a major, you blew it, or you didn't do enough to impress whoever needed to be impressed for that. LTC's gone, and from what I've been told, LTC was going to like come back in some form, like the same exact venue, everything, same time of year. It was just going to be under like a different name or different ownership. There was like a different contract for it. I have heard zero rumors about that since I've had that conversation with that person at LTC. I'm pretty convinced there is not going to be a successor to LTC anymore. I don't know what happened with that, but I feel like we would have heard something about that at this time if there was. Now, MomoCon is on a completely different story because MomoCon is definitely, I'm like 95% sure, going to happen. Well, MomoCon as an event is actually going to happen. It's on May 22nd through the 25th. Will Splatoon be there? The answer is like, yes. The problem with MomoCon, what I've been told through back channels, is they haven't gotten the license yet. Like sometimes Nintendo kind of drags their feet getting licenses out to people. And because they haven't gotten the license yet, they don't want to announce it, which sucks. It sucks so bad that 4 months from now, there could be a major Splatoon event and people who want to plan for it can't because the event hasn't been 100% confirmed announced yet, versus Get On My Level, which has been announced and registration has already opened and they dropped a trailer for it over this past weekend. Get On My Level is going to be taking place in July, over the 4th of July weekend. And if you're thinking, wow, that's un-American to have a LAN over the 4th of July weekend, it's not an American LAN. It's Canada, who's going to stay Canada by the time it's the 4th of July, which we stand that. Which does mean two things. One, I need to make sure that I update my passport. I haven't done that. I think mine expired in 23. And we did look, like, infant passports last a surprisingly long time. Like, by the time PJ has aged out of his passport, he's not going to look anything like he does now. It's like, but I'm not going to question it. Not going to question it. I'm just going to roll with it. But the second thing about Get On My Level, is this going to be the true successor to LTC, just on a completely different side of the continent from where that was? Because we don't really have that spring LAN. Now, this isn't spring. This is literally, well, technically the beginning of the summer, but it's hot enough to be the dead middle of summer. But Get On My Level's kind of, I need to get Siren or one of her henchmen to come on and talk about Get On My Level at some point, because the last I saw, there was a cap for the number of registrations that they have, but they also kind of hinted at the cap could go away. If they I don't know if they get enough people signed up, or maybe they find a different venue room or something. I have no idea. I have no answer to that kind of question. They released the trailer and mentioned there's some sort of party boat. Like, do I really want to be on a boat partying with you guys? I don't know if I do. I mean, I'm interested enough to try it, but I don't really know what you guys are like. Maybe, yes, Falco, you, yes, Satan, yes. The rest of you, a little bit, the jury's still out on how you guys kind of party on a boat. Let's just say that. But that still would be an awesome event to take place. And I think they themselves have a lot of questions. Like, okay, what is the demand for Splatoon at Get On My Level? I think that's what the overarching TOs of that event are kind of curious to see. And I hope it gets the support that Genesis, I don't want to say Genesis didn't get the support, because I think Genesis got the kind of people it was going to get. But the problem is you got to let these things kind of grow. Riptide and LTC became monsters because they gave it a few years to run. When you just let it go one time and you think like, well, we didn't get what we wanted out of this, let's just not try it again. Well, no, a lot of folks want to see an event run the first time before they go to it. I think there would have been more people to go to this Genesis one just because they were like, okay, I'm not going this year because I just want to see how it works. And now that I see how it works, okay, now I might be more interested. And you announce it ahead of time, I'll be able to plan for it a little bit more. Get On My Level was announced long before. That's 6 months away, but it's been announced long before then. Everyone had time to plan for it. Same thing with Riptide. Riptide is now going to become, if it isn't already, the Splatoon championship of the year. It is the one major that you should want to win. It should be an international event to where people from Europe are like, I need to go to Riptide. And I know the difficulties of getting people from Japan, the language barrier, the distance. I understand all of that stuff. But I feel like Riptide, especially since like the Overlords were there last time, just kind of like filming all that. What are they doing with all that film? I haven't seen anything from all those people they talked to from that event. But Riptide should become a super major. Like, it should be our Genesis, right? Like, it should be the one event that no matter what you're doing, you need to make sure that you're there. And they treat it like that as far as the promotion. I love the fact that as you are going back to your airport at the end of Riptide, before you get on your plane to fly home, they've already announced the dates for the Riptide next year. And the reason is because they have that license and it's consistent and they already have all the stuff kind of booked out. You can't register for it then, but you have a year to finally start to realize, oh, I can start planning this out. I can start looking at flights. I can start looking at hiring a babysitter. I can start looking at saving up money. Like, it gives you a lot of extra time when you have the whole year to plan things out. I can start looking for a third for the volleyball team that me and Nine are going to be having in that sand volleyball tournament. It just gives you a whole lot more time. And it's great that that's the way. I'm worried about MomoCon because, like, come on, it would, like, just announce the damn thing already. And I hope Get On My Level kind of turns out to be that way. My point being with all of this is we're just kind of talking about every single land that I can think of at the moment. The offline community doesn't get talked about enough because we're all stuck online. And the online community is extremely frustrating at times. It's just really frustrating. There's no denying that. But if you want to know what the real soul of the community is, there's so many different events to go to, starting in February and going all the way up through September. And then I'm sure a lot of these other locals will pop up, and a lot of these other events that are already taking place will be running again multiple times a year. Me personally, I would like to go to either MomoCon or Get On My Level this year. And Riptide, I mean, unless we're on paternity leave again, I don't see us ever missing Riptide. I mean, we brought PJ last year and he existed during it. Like it can only go up from there as he gets older. But what about you? What are some events you would want to go to? I'm not going to be taking your calls this day. We don't have time for that, but just be thinking about that. There's events to go to. If you go to an event, local, major, whatever, I promise you're going to have a good time. If you don't, well, maybe it's just because you don't like human beings, which is completely understandable. But there's a lot of good things going on offline. We should spend more time talking about it, which we're going to be doing on the podcast. All right, we're going to be talking to Rose coming up momentarily, but there are more things to talk about, including the events that took place this last weekend. It is now time for the weekly recap. Paddling pool number 303 took place last Wednesday. It was won by O to Victory. Jesse Matador got second place, and Uprising, a little bit confused about their name, got third place in that event. 25 teams played in paddling pool number 303. I did the math in case you're wondering when is the 350th edition of paddling pool going to be. It's the week before Christmas Eve, unless my math is a little bit off. So if you're wondering, are they going to run an event on Christmas specifically because they could get the 300 on New Year's Day? Will they run an event on New Year's Eve? Dapple's production will. They will not miss a Christmas Eve if it means they can run a tournament on that day. Bookmark that for later. SOS number 176 took place on Wednesday. It was won by Deltarune Reference Gone Wrong. Tobiana Grande finished in second place, and Polo rounds out your top three. Shoutouts to a team who didn't make podium, but the Golfo de Mexico played in this event, and that is, as far as I'm concerned, the name of that thing. Hammerhead bracket was won by Marine Fate. Mako bracket won by Hey Man Rez here. Lantern bracket won by Inked Under. Triton Cup number 95 took place last Friday. It was won by Vacation. Candin took second place, and ASC Tenchi rounds out your top three. 27 teams played in this double elimination Plat Zone only tournament run by Dapple Productions. When is the 100th Triton Cup going to take place? It is going to take place on April the 4th, according to the every other Friday rotation. And what holiday takes place on the 100th edition of Triton Cup? It is National Vitamin C Day. Kind of a drop-off from New Year's Day, but you know what? Triton Cup's just kind of a drop-off all around, I guess, compared to paddling pool. FTIU from the Ink Up, the 70th edition of this tournament, took place on Friday night. It was won by Koa is Mid LOL. But they won. Well, I guess you're mid if you win from the Ink Up. That makes sense. Epsilon Dragons took second place, and Aurora, who has Aura, they finished in third. 38 teams played in this tournament. Koa seems to be an Oceania team who likes to play in the Friday night tournaments. The CCA held an entrance exam tournament. And it was the top three teams are Death Roll, VCU Big Fat Sea Cows, and USF Gold. That is the South Florida Gold. I believe they announced registration is now open for their next season, and you bet your bottom dollar that we are going to be having another CCA interview here on the Popcast, and maybe I'll make an appearance on their podcast this upcoming season. Who knows? I know there's some things in the works there. The NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs somehow stopped Josh Allen from getting a first down on an obvious first down situation, so they win that. The Philadelphia Eagles ran all over the Commanders with the best offseason acquisition of the year. Those two teams are going to be playing in the Super Bowl 2 weeks from now. And that was the weekly recap. Sponsored by this clip that you're about to see. Worlds will collide. Splatoon 3 officially joins the Battle of BC 7 tournament lineup. Register at battleofbc.com. The Splatoon 3 bracket will span 2 days, taking place on Saturday and Sunday. Bring your own team or staff will help pair you with other teammates. Battle of BC number 7, the official sponsor of today's segment of the weekly recap. It's in Vancouver, wherever the hell that is. Whoever that is. Did I just break my entire thing? I did not. Oh, boy. That was a lot of talking in the last 40 minutes. All right. MAGFest took place this last weekend. And believe it or not, Splatoon was there. So joining us now, as I get everything set up the last few seconds as I typically do. There we go. We got it right. We got it right here. Joining us now on the Popcast to talk about it. Somebody who was associated or assisted running the event, streamer, cosplayer, and captain of Malibu Rising, Rose of Battle. Rose, how's morale
Hello.
today?
Oh my gosh. My voice is barely hanging on from all of the shouting we had to do on Saturday for the Splatoon tournament. But yeah, the weekend was it had ups and downs, but even when there were downs, we still had a really, really great time looking back on it. And yeah, we have a lot to talk about.
Okay,
My
so
voice will hold out.
I've been seeing Keone in chat say the same thing, like, "Oh, my voice is gone." Oh, okay, do they not give you guys honey, or are you guys just yelling at each other the whole time? Like, what? Genuine question. What is MAGFest to somebody like me who's only recently hearing about it?
So MagFest has actually been around for a long time. Somebody in chat might know like the exact number of years they've been around. I want to say over 20 years, but they've been a pretty local sort of thing until much more recently. I would say in the past decade, maybe they've gotten bigger. But it stands for the Music and Games Festival. Sherbert and I always joke that it's called MagFest, not Gamfest. The focus is on music and games. But there is a lot of gaming taking place. It happens from, it opens Thursday morning-ish and goes until about Sunday afternoon. It is a con that is continually operating 24 hours. It does not close until Sunday afternoon.
How many times have you been to MAGFest? Was this your first time, or have you been several times in the past?
I've been several times. My very first time was before they moved to their current location. It's always been in the DC sort of area. I remember going when it was in a tiny hotel in like Northern Virginia. And we just had like a basement. And they had a couple arcade setups. They had a little like marketplace for independent sellers who had made cute little things, and they had guests that they would invite. But it's kind of felt like a little convention where people could gather and talk about music and also celebrate a love for games. And it has really grown since then. They now are in the National Harbor, which is a what I call a fake city, a very artificial city that is in like just outside of DC, technically in within the state of Maryland, but right in that DC area. And I don't have the exact numbers, but I want to say they MagFest hits around 20,000 attendees every year now. They completely sell out. They max capacity. And they have concerts running the entire time. Everything from, if you're familiar with the Videri String Quartet, they do a lot of string arrangements of music from video games. There's also chiptune stuff. There's a nightclub that has DJs doing lots of remixes, often from games. They invite composers like Austin Wintory, who has done the music for so many games, such as Journey, will be invited to MAGFest. They have a community orchestra, which actually Dory, who will talk about, who can't be here today because he is currently on a plane, but who was our head TO for the Splatoon tournament. He is a professional musician. He also went so he could play in the community orchestra. So it's really a weekend of people who are obsessed with music and also obsessed with games, and also many people who are obsessed with both of them together.
Makes sense. So when we're talking about music, we're not talking about like Sabrina Carpenter's not going to be there doing a concert kind of thing.
No, you know what? I have no idea if she's into video games.
Now, so we have Gen Con here in Indianapolis. I believe that's mostly board gaming among like several other things. Like I'm sure there was more than just music and games going on at MAGFest.
Yeah.
But
Sherbert and I learned how to lockpick. They had an actual place to teach you how to lockpick.
Okay, is this going to be applied in any way? We like breaking into something or what?
Maybe.
That seems like a skill that would be, if you just didn't use that, then like what's the point? You just wasted time learning that. You got to apply that somehow.
I know.
All right, potential felonies being admitted to here on the podcast. Were you were cosplaying all weekend?
No, man. Oh my God. I used to be the sort of person who would cosplay. I've been cosplaying since 2008. For anybody who does not know, I am about Popgun's age. Everybody thinks I'm like 10 years younger than I am, but when I was 20, I would bring, no lie, like 7 costumes to an entire weekend of convention. And I can't do that anymore. I get tired too quickly. My feet hurt. So I brought 2. I brought Harmony from Splatoon and also Ivan from Golden Sun. And I did not end up wearing Ivan because of how Saturday went. But I did end up wearing Harmony.
I think you might have wanted to wear the Ivan. You could have started reading people's minds and getting a true sense of like what all was going on Saturday. If that,
I wish. I get the sense that nobody at the console ops knew what was going on either.
Harmony. I think I saw some pictures of you dressed up as Harmony. When you come up with a costume like that, how much time goes into? Oh, I mean, Harmony might not be the most difficult because I guess it's kind of like a t-shirt, mostly makeup. But like some of your more elaborate cosplays that you've done, how much time would you say you've invested into creating something?
Ooh. Well, I'm a compulsive procrastinator. Cons are actually really good for motivating me to get stuff done. Harmony was nice, quick, and easy. She had been sort of like, for a couple years, I was like, I should cosplay Harmony. And then finally, around November, I was like, you know what? It's time. Let's do it. So yeah, Harmony was pretty easy. T-shirt. I dyed a skirt that I already had. Threw together a wig. A lot of like not particularly difficult stuff. A lot of it was painting a hat, painting shoes. But much more complicated things have definitely can take several months of work on a single costume. And I know some cosplayers who have very huge builds. If they're doing things with that require motors or LEDs or like just huge armor builds, I know people who have worked on a costume for an entire year.
It doesn't surprise me because I've seen pictures before and it's just like I can't believe a human being created that in their spare time. But no, it looked like you had fun from the pictures that I saw. I mean, there's some other pictures we'll get to that didn't look like a whole heck of a lot of fun. But I understand that obviously you're here because Splatoon took place at that event, but it's obviously not the main scope of the event. Same thing with MomoCon. Yeah. Like if Splatoon's there, yeah, our side of the community will pay attention to it, but we're just like the 0.1% that might care that Splatoon is there.
Mhm.
What all events Splatoon wise have you been to? I know LTC because we went to that
Mhm.
barbecue place across the road or the railroad tracks. What other Splatoon events have you been to um, before?
Um, Other than LTC, because I've been to LTC, last year and the year before when we went
Right.
out for barbecue. And otherwise, I've been to nearly every Metro Inc. event.
Okay. So the big dapples and all those things.
Yeah, and I mean, I will be going to Riptide this year, but my first time at Riptide.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about the Metro Inc. thing. How have you enjoyed those events?
Oh, they're a blast. I mean, I remember the very first Big Dapple I went to, which was a huge learning curve for them. That you know, as many issues as we had at MAGFest, there were plenty of issues with that first Big Dapple, and I love those TOs. But oh my gosh, they were like, "Yeah, we are so sorry. This was so scuffed." And then, I mean, they've been so on the ball since then. They've learned so much. They've got a lot of good people who have helped volunteer. I've also been there on the volunteer side for the very first gridlock, because we didn't have enough people from Malibu going. And now that I moved from just spectating and volunteering now to commentating for them and playing as a participant now that we've been able to consistently get three members of our team going to these locals. And then we grab a fourth local player who's a friend. And I love them. Metro Inc.'s my favorite. I love the TOs. We have a really good scene there. Everybody should go. If you're in the New York City area, you should absolutely go.
Well, yeah, everything I've seen stream-wise from it, it looks like it's been a fun time. I like that they have the commentators literally on a couch, just kind of chilling. It kind of just gives you that, like everybody's just kind of vibing at this event, and they've been starting to get some really strong players come out there as well. So it's become an event you do kind
Oh
of want to
yeah.
tune in for just to kind of watch.
Oh my gosh, Malibu gets our butt kicked every time. And we're like, this, oh my God, y'all are amazing. This is so much fun. Thank you for kicking our butts.
Okay, so Splatoon was at MagFest. Um, I guess I just kind of want to start. You kind of mentioned Dory is the head TO over the whole thing. How did you get involved in kind of assisting with it? Were you kind of like forced into whatever it is that you did on Saturday?
So, I was already planning to go to MagFest. I'd already bought tickets. We're figuring out hotels and transportation. I am friends with the Splatoon cosplay coordinator, because there are also cosplay photo shoots that are given official space at particular scheduled times. And Splatoon's consistently for the last several years been one of those. Fortunately, because the person who runs it is also sort of like I believe they're the head of the cosplay department over at MagFest. So that's always been like Splatoon's always been pretty popular as far as like a niche game kind of goes at MagFest. And then because I've already, was like, I'm gonna go to MagFest. In October of 2024, they put out a call on social media saying that they wanted anybody interested in TOing or being able to help out with the tournament at MagFest for 2025 to reach out, and they, gave an email contact. Sherbert and I both saw this, and Sherbert, who's also been in chat, is also on Malibu, and it's also, goes to all the Metro Inc. stuff with me. He's frequently my commentator partner. Has also been to MagFest and whatnot. We both emailed in saying like, hey, neither of us have TO'd before. Neither of us have TO'd before. We don't want to be in charge, but we are totally around and already going. And if you need help, we are here. If you plan on streaming, we're experienced commentators and we are happy to come on and commentate. We are happy to come in and just help out if you need any extra hands, because that's always very important at a LAN, just as long as we're not in charge. We would love to help out in any way possible. We hear that our friend Dory, who has TO'd events before, is interested. Dory told me that he found out from the Shoal organization that MagFest was looking for somebody. And so he ended up reaching out and sent like a cover letter and a resume of like his Splatoon TO experience. So they were like, "Yeah, sounds great, Dory. We would love to have you." And then I believe Sherbert and I didn't hear back until I want to say it was early December. So we that initial call went out in October. We hear back in I think early December of like, hey, we've got Dory on. Um, Dory was asked if he had any ideas for people to ask for, additional help. It turned, he was like, oh, I know Rose and Sherbert would love to help. MAGFest staff was like, we were already considering asking Rose and Sherbert to help, so great, we're gonna pull them in. There were a few other people, I believe, from the Shoal who said they were willing to help out online. They would not be attending, but if there was any online support needed, they could totally help out. So then by the later on in December, we hear back again. During this time, we've been all communicating via email with the head of the consoles department at MAGFest, just getting a basic idea of what their expectations are, which is not a Splatoon LAN as many of us in the competitive scene are used to. It is definitely more casual. They don't want just like a single team, a single established competitive team rolling up and curb stomping, because they know it's mostly casual players.
Right.
So they let us know that. They communicate a few other things, but like their limitations for like their equipment, how signups work for at MAGFest. We find out that we can't do pre-registration for the tournament. People have to sign up at the event just because of their software on their end. They ask us for some info. By the end of December, we're told that everything is starting to go live on Guidebook, which for anybody who does not regularly attend, especially, I see it mostly used for anime conventions in the US. It's just an app on your phone that conventions can use to put in information about the con, panels and schedules and various things. So we end up scheduling an actual like video call that we do in January or very early January of this month, where we finally sit down with the console's head, another staffer from MAGFest. It's myself, Sherbert, and Dory. And we're going through what is needed for a Splatoon LAN at the most basic levels. And we start going through, we're like, okay, so this is what we're used to at like competitive LANs. This is what you would see at like these regional events and whatnot. Low Tide City, Riptide. We realize they're already have no idea about Splatoon. They ask us if we were telling them about the mixers, and we're like, okay, well, like, are players expected to be able to hear comms and the game? And Dory and I and Sherbert and I crack up when one of the people from MAGFest asks, oh, Splatoon doesn't have native comm support? And we just crack up. We're like, no.
You didn't show them the Nintendo app? You could have done it on there. Like, that
would have worked great. We're just like, no. You know what? Don't worry about it. I've heard that MomoCon doesn't, has not had mixers. They just, played music. You just plug in your headphones to the Switch or have it output through the monitors, and people will just have to yell. Okay, whatever, fine. I'm sure, it's a casual event mostly at MAGFest. I'm sure people will be fine. Honestly, the mixer setup probably going to intimidate people anyway. So we're just like, okay, forget all of that. Don't even worry about that. Here's a list of stuff you need for the LAN setup, because that is necessary. They say, cool, we've got it. You'll have those. We'll get you set up for LAN. This will be running in the console gaming area of MAGFest, which, for anybody who is not aware and has not been, it is the basement level. It is a very large room with a lot of games being played at once. A Smash tournament, several other tournaments happening. They have a bunch of free play areas. It's super dark. Like, we couldn't see anything. We're straight up like using our phones as flashlights so we can see anything. And it's just an extremely overstimulating experience in the consoles area. But they let us know. They draw a diagram of where in consoles will be. We're going to be able to use their special events section, especially for later in the tournament, especially for like semifinals, finals. They'll also have a table set up. We were told that there will be 16 Switch docks, and they'll have all the stuff set up for a LAN connection between them. We decide, okay, we're going to cap signups at 64 players. People are allowed to sign up alone if they are like, I don't have any friends who play Splatoon. Or they can sign up with a friend. I didn't end up, trying out the sign up console tablet to see how it worked. So I'm not sure what the user experience was like for that. If anybody did go, please let me know because I sure didn't. I didn't sign up because I was up running it. But we were told that people could sign up as a single or as a duo. And then we would end signups 1 hour before the tournament. We'd get a list of all the players, and then we were going to go through and put people in teams of 4 because we knew most of the players were more casual players. They probably are not going to roll up with an established team of 4 whole players. And they're kind of mostly like a lot of these events, especially for something like Splatoon, which you need 4 people on a team. It's not like Smash where you're just rolling up by yourself. It's really hard to get these teams of 4 people going, and that's always like at the beginner entry level when people have come into like my streams on Twitch and they don't play competitive and they want to get into it. Their first question is always like, "But I don't know 3 people who play Splatoon,
Right.
so I can't make a team." So a lot of this was the idea was we want to foster new friendships between people who have never played comp before, and maybe there will be some new comp teams come out of it. I hope so. I saw 4 people exchange Discord info and talk about playing in Anarchy and tournaments together. So I'm hoping a new team came out of all the stress of Saturday. So we've worked things out. It's, a few weeks before MAGFest. We've been talking with the head of consoles. He lets us know that he's not going to be available there right at the con when the tournament is happening. We have the names of people we should get in touch with if something goes wrong. During this, Dory realizes that the guidebook app for the tournament has very little info. They've only put in the information about bring your own Switch, bring your own copy of Splatoon, bring your controller. And there's no other information. There's nothing about like you have to sign up the event. There's no pre-registration. You can sign up as an individual or as a duo. There's very little information that is provided. People start commenting in like a comment section of the guidebook app, and Dory then started replying to questions and whatnot, which was like the jankiest thing ever. We're pretty unhappy with like the limited amount of info that was provided to people prior to the event. So people had no idea what was going on. We ended up doing a lot of word of mouth at the convention, especially at the Splatoon cosplay meetup that happened on Friday to try to let people know. And if anybody's aware, if you've ever been to Riptide, you've probably seen like Tori and Bugslap from River Remix with their big merch displays.
It's impossible to miss, yes.
you can't miss them. Well, Bugslap was vending at MAGFest, so his stall just became like the Splatoon meetup for a lot of people. So we ended up passing on a lot of the information just ourselves because we knew that information was not being distributed by MAGFest, which was frustrating. And then at that point, Saturday rolls around. Dory heads down before Sherbert and I to check out consoles area, see if things are okay. We soon realize things are not okay. We have been moved to an entirely different area in consoles due to technical difficulties, and we have not been informed exactly what happened with that yet. So we're told that it's not being streamed anymore, which is a bummer, but the least of our concerns. We do hear that we've hit the max number of players, so that's exciting. We did get 64 people to sign up.
That's impressive.
I know.
What is that, 16 teams?
Yeah, 16 teams. And and I didn't even mention, last year was the first time there was a Splatoon tournament at all at MAGFest. I did not end up being able to attend MAGFest last year. Sherbert did and was sick and missed the day of the tournament. I know the previous organizer wanted to be involved in this year. MAGFest staff blew this person off, to put it the most blunt way that I can. That I don't think this person was treated very fairly. And essentially just sort of like, you're not being involved, we're going with somebody else. All of this info I don't realize until last night as we get in touch. But yeah, so we arrived Saturday. We realized our whole setup's been moved. The player sign up list they gave us is not ordered in any sort of fashion. We're given one column for name and one column for their badge number for the sign up, because what you had to do for sign up at the terminal was you had to have a badge that you could scan in order to sign up. So we have this whole list, and it's a paper list. We have no digital version of this list to sort ourselves. It's just like 3 pages of player names and badge numbers. So that's all frustrating. But Dory does an amazing job of getting people lined up and checked in by hand, one by one, in nearly complete darkness, with only our flashlights to light the paper and people's badges to get their numbers. And gets people sorted as quickly as possible into 16 teams of 4, keeping people who signed up as duos together. We had an instance of like 2 duos who wanted to play, and they all knew each other, and we politely told them no because we were afraid they were going to curb stomp. So we like separated some people out. We made sure that a lot of players who were new were, if possible, going to be grouped up with people who had a little bit more experience. Our main goal was anybody who had actual comp experience, because I know earlier in chat, there's mention that we had like 6-pack yokes there. We had Ink 95 there. We did have, some actual like players from real competitive Splatoon who the 3 of us recognized. And most of the players, though, had never played comp before. And we could tell because most of the time when we were checking people in, we said, hi, do you have an idea of what your div is, just to get a sense? And they were like, what's that? And we went, cool, that's all we need to know.
That gives us all the info we need. Div 11, gotcha.
Right, that's all we need to know. Don't even worry about it. And so we get people set up. Yeah, we're all shouting. As mentioned, it's an extremely loud area. It's in a basement. There are tons of other things happening all around us. Smash is literally right next to us. It is so loud. Oh, and of course, Smash has an actual setup and everything. We're put at the Switch free play area. So while we are trying to disseminate information by a game of telephone from Dory to Sherbert to me, so that the players can actually hear us, while we're losing our voices, because a megaphone is not available for us to borrow from staff. At least not a megaphone with working batteries. We keep having to shoo away people who were like, oh, the Switch free play area, I'm gonna use it to play a game. And we're like, no, I'm sorry, we've taken this area. We have a lot of new players who have never played a tournament for Splatoon before, wandering off and not staying in the area. We're hunting down players. I'm shouting out like, where's team number 9? Losing our voices. We eventually find 4 teams who are all ready. None of them have wandered off. So we're like, cool, we're throwing you all down. Get set up. We have 16 switches. You guys are here. You guys are here. Start getting set up. And then we're going around and I'm like, okay, these people probably have never done LAN before, so we're going to start going around and showing them how to get connected to the LAN. That is when we realize there is no LAN setup. And everything goes downhill from there. We realize, of course, there's no LAN setup. We're in a basement, and anybody who has been to MAGFest or Katsucon, which takes place at the same venue, knows that the Wi-Fi there is basically non-existent. So we can't do Wi-Fi. We have to do, like, the only way we can make this work is the Switch proximity connection.
Mm-hmm. I've
Unfortunately, yeah, no, go ahead.
I've done that once before. A
It's not
Columbus
good.
meetup that was just like a regular, like, let's just meet other people in Ohio. It is, it's like playing Splatoon if the floor was ice and somehow lava at the same time. It is the worst experience I've ever had with any video game that I can recall. And yeah, playing a turn.
Yes.
You guys had to play a whole tournament on that.
Yes, and it gets worse. So, MagFest, to make sure that things don't get stolen, they often for consoles, they will zip tie parts of the console to these metal cages. So you can't just like you can't easily take the whole thing with you because like all of this is all loaner stuff that they're
Mm.
getting from various volunteers. Um, you put all of these switches in the docks inside metal cages for the switch proximity connection along with all the other devices in the area. And everything is competing, the metal's blocking solid connections. We spent 30 minutes trying to get the first round of all these games started, and we couldn't get a single time of 8 people in a lobby without one of them getting disconnected within a few seconds. It was impossible. I was at the point where I was like, can we just give up? I'm done. There's no way this is working. Dory is like, okay, wait, let's give this one more shot. Uh, Anybody who is okay with doing this, we are now giving up on the Switch docks. We are moving to the floor. Everybody huddle up together, get as close as you can with your Switches in handheld mode. Become really good friends. And you're all gonna get Switches together as close as possible. And even then, we're still having trouble. Floor LAN. And I, at this point, like I'm going around to as many people as possible who have not wandered off to let them know what the situation is. We're like, you know what? If you want to dip, we will like do it. I would do it. We no harm taken, no foul. Feel free, go ahead. Please submit feedback to MagFest about how scuffed this was. Please let them know to make sure to have LAN equipment ready next time. So a lot of people leave at this point. I don't even remember how many teams we had remaining. Maybe 6 remaining. And so we get as many of them going as we can. And we manage to eventually, especially as more people depart and they don't have their Switches around, there are fewer devices competing. So we do eventually manage to get games going. And sort of have the casual rule of like, hey, if you guys lose somebody for the game, you get a free replay every single game. Like we'll do our best here. Like this is awful and terrible. We're gonna be as understanding as possible. And of the players who remained, it seemed like there was a lot of reasonable frustration. But also people were extremely patient, very kind with us, and we're understanding. And I am so sorry for anybody who has like pain or mobility issues, because there is absolutely no reason an official MagFest event has to put people on the floor of the basement. So yeah, that was rough. We do eventually when we have a couple more teams knocked out, we steal a table so we can at least have people sitting in chairs playing handheld or have their Switches resting with the kickstand so you can play with your controller. And the players were awesome. There were actually some really close games. We had fewer disconnections at that point pretty late on when there were fewer people playing. And like we were like, you know what? We're playing on random maps. Just go for it. We'll do counter picks for semifinals and finals. But you are allowed to pick any map mode so long as it's one you haven't won on. So we get things like Mahi Rainmaker. We get like and the Mahi Rainmaker game was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. One team got down to 1 point, and then late on the other team managed to get a knockout just in time. Like these were close games. They were really fun to watch, and the people who stuck around to watch had a lot of like really great energy. we're not as loud as like, you know, Low Tide City 2024 watching Moonlight take games in the finals. But there's a lot of energy and people screaming and cheering and getting really, really excited. So it ended up super scuffed. A lot of problems that we're now starting to communicate now that we're home and able to get in touch with our contact. Uh, but it was a time. It was a time, and I want to thank like all the players who came out because y'all were awesome. And even if you dipped early, which was completely understandable, I would say not like 99% of the people who showed up to play and saw how dire things were extremely polite about it. And we really only had like one player scream at us, which I consider like pretty awesome. Only one.
Hopefully they were just screaming at the situation and not
Yeah.
like, Dory, this is clearly your fault. Like, no, like, okay, so how the hell does that happen? Like you said you all gave them the list of stuff that you need, bare minimum. You didn't even get monitors? Like what
We did
happened
okay,
there?
so we got switch docks, we got monitors. That was about it.
But you couldn't connect at all with those things.
Yeah.
So you just had because I've seen the pictures of people like 8 switches huddled around like at a McDonald's table looking like kind of thing. And it's like,
Yep,
really?
that was me going around being like, I'm taking pictures because I gotta send this to MAGFest.
That is insane. Now I get the Smash thing because as I've always said here, I could run a Smash LAN out of my living room. Anybody could. To do a Splatoon event, what a lot of people don't realize is it's that times 8 plus the LAN switches that you were talking about, the TM1s, like the audio mixers, all that stuff. It's a lot of stuff just to do one set of Splatoon. Was there any like Splatoon equivalent going? Was there like a Call of Duty or like a Halo station, or would Splatoon be like the biggest team game going on there at that time?
I believe it was really the only actual team game. Like there may have been like Smash duos, but those
Right,
are
but
those are things you can play on the same console.
right.
Yeah, there were, as far as I know, there were like they did actually have a separate LAN room. I don't know why. Last year Splatoon wasn't put there, and neither were we. I don't know why that is. But at least in the consoles area where they put us, there's nothing else like Splatoon.
Well, fair. I mean, there's so few things like Splatoon. I mean, LTC obviously there's still nothing like it. It's a huge beast to kind of put on, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. I had Raze on talking about Big House after that happened, and even the Big House TOs were kind of like blown away by the amount of equipment necessary for just one event, one station to be run. So it's a yeah, if you don't know what you're getting into, which it seems like the people above y'all's pay grade didn't quite realize, and well, you kind of get what you get with that. But positives, 64 people, mostly casual. That is amazing. The fact that you guys made it work despite all of the bullshit that you put up with, that is incredible. That is genuinely incredible. You guys deserve a lot of props for that. Was a champion determined? Like, did you find a winner of this event?
There was, and I don't know if Sherbert, if you're here, I don't remember like what team number they were. 'Cause we had numbers just for everybody. We're like, you're team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4. Become friends. I believe 2 of the people, so like one of the duos on this team also won the tournament last year.
Okay, so back-to-back champion kind of
Yeah.
scenario. Was it actual competitive people that were part of the winning team?
Yes.
Okay.
But only
Fair enough.
as far my understanding is that it was only the 2 of them, that duo. I know for certain at least one of the other players was not, because he and I actually did talk a lot during the tournament and after the tournament when a bunch of us stuck around to take photos and just do friendlies together, because we were like, this was a harrowing experience. Let's all just like continue taking over this table that we have just claimed for ourselves now, and we're just gonna keep playing scuffed Splatoon together for funsies.
Well,
And like he had never played comp before. This was his very first tournament. And we were like, "Yo, congrats, you got a win. You got first place in your very first tournament." And he was telling me he loved the experience of playing with two competitive players, and not just because he was like, "Oh yeah, they carried me." But he said he learned so much about how to play Splatoon in a competitive fashion with other people. Like these other players were doing shot calls, telling him where to go, because this player was mostly playing Octobrush. And so they were, leading him, like, you need to attack now. This is what you need to do. We're gonna follow up behind you. And he said he learned so much, and he's really excited. He is hoping to go to Metro Inc. events in the future because he's in the general area. So I think we got at least a couple new players interested in going to LANs, because I also went around telling as many people as possible about all the upcoming LANs that were mentioned just previously on this episode. And also giving out a lot of resources for people wanting to get into online tournaments if they're not near a LAN, of what Discord servers to join, like where they want to go to start learning more about it, how to find other people to play with. The team that got third place, they all exchanged Discord contact information, and we're really excited to make plans to start playing together online together. So, as scuffed as it was, I will take away from this that at least we got several new players to competitive or semi-competitive Splatoon.
Yeah, that's genuinely awesome. And I mean, that's if you can the hope is that a lot of people don't look at that and be like, "Oh, well, this is the norm." It's clearly not. Like, especially if you play online, like any experience would be somewhat more enjoyable to some extent than what they kind of went through. But I get the sense that, at least from what you're telling me, a lot of people just kind of understood that. And yeah, I mean, again, it's incredible that you guys were able to make it kind of work the way that it did. That is when I saw those pictures, I was like, I know there's a story behind this, and I'm glad you're able to come on and tell us the story behind those pictures.
Yeah, we got drinks afterwards.
Well earned. How's Malibu Rising doing?
Good. We're excited. I know, like last fall, we had some roster changes from scheduling issues. We have 2 new members. We've got a new anchor who's wonderful. We've got another Slayer. They're all wonderful. So we've learned a lot in the last few months with a coach. So we're excited. We're like, it's time to rise up through low level for, with our name Malibu Rising. We're ready to go up. We keep getting our butts kicked in really tight group sets and getting thrown to bronze brackets, and then like winning or getting close to winning bronze brackets, and we're just like, we are not beating the allegations of throwing for bronze. But we'll get there. We're gonna win from the Ink Up. We're gonna win LSL. We did our first low ink in forever.
I saw
this month, and had a great time going 3-3 with some really, really close losses. Except for the time we got our butts kicked by the people who won low ink.
Ball up top, y'all played them.
We did. Yeah, they sure did take every game.
Well, good news. They are now banned from low ink.
Good.
We recognize they're pretty good because they beat everybody else as well.
They were excellent.
So I'll see you at Riptide. Are we going to see all of Malibu Rising? Is that going to be a Malibu Rising at Riptide potentially?
Probably not. I don't know, Sherbert, are you got to go to Riptide with me. I've been to Mercy, who's also on our team, went to Low Tide City with me on a pickup. But mostly I think you'll generally find us at Metro Inc. events, because 2 of us are in the New York City area. Another person is close enough to commute over and stay with me. Our 2 other members are a bit far away, but I'm hoping to get as many people as possible to Riptide. We probably won't have our full team. We'll hopefully at least have about half of us.
Well, again, thank you for coming on and talking about MAGFest. And, well, hopefully things go a little bit better next year.
Yeah, so I did, a few hours ago, did actually get in contact with the console head, who apologized for the communication problems at the event and how things happened. They are aware of the problems. We are going to schedule a full postmortem soon. Hopefully, there will be a Splatoon tournament happening next year, and hopefully, we'll have land switches at the very least.
It'd be a step in the right direction. It'd be
It
nice if
would.
there was a land component to the Splatoon land, for sure.
Yeah. Yes, we're,
Rose,
we're hoping.
I'll see you at the end of the. I'll see you in about 8 months or so. Then
Yeah, I'll see
more.
ya. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
And that was Rose of Battle. Wow. And I don't have. I might be able to put up those photos real quick that I was kind of talking about to give you guys a sense. Because I saw these photos and I was like, what the heck is going on here? There were some cool cosplay photos. I mean, I don't want to sit here and be negative, but yeah, it's like some of this stuff is hilarious. So here's, I mean, Rhodes was talking about people being like sitting next to each other to make it work. This is what it. Oh, hold on, we're breaking some stuff here. There we go. People literally just kind of hovered around. You can see how dark it is in there too. There's the table. That is competitive land Splatoon. But there you see the stream kind of for Smash taking place there on the other side. But yeah, that's an interesting kind of story that we learned from there. All right, that's gonna do it for today's episode. If you'd like to be a part of the podcast in any way, feel free to reach out my socials. Discord on Popgun on Discord and Popgun on Blue Sky. Make sure you get vaccinated, stay safe, wear a mask when applicable. If you went to MAGFest, get tested because you were 100% around somebody who has COVID. It happens at every Splatoon event or convention. Make sure you get tested. And we'll see you guys next week. Not sure what we'll talk about. We'll talk about something cool. Maybe something more cool than what we talked about today. It'll be difficult to top, but we'll see. Have a good night.